Hello everyone, welcome back to our math class. In this video, we are going to talk about how do we evaluate linear function, how do we interpret linear functions through their different representations. We can read the information of linear functions through its function table, through its equation of the function. We can also read the information from its graph. So today we are going to focus on these three perspectives. Very first thing, we are going to quickly review what is function notation. Function notation, as you can see in the past, we always write form, for example, this one, we can just write as mx plus b, or we just write down 3x minus 2 as y equals, right? Instead of using y, we can also just use f of x. Nothing new for this. This is actually just represent y. And this one read as f of x. So what does that mean? Whenever you see this notation, you will know this is actually the input, and this input, the function applied to this input is 3 times the input minus 2, and whatever the value we get is the output. So the final answer here is output. For example, simple example here, f of 3 is 7. That means when x is 3, y is 7. And also interesting is, even just a notation, we know on the graph there's a point is 3, 7. This is a point on the graph. So as you can see, function notation is just very simple, simple symbol here, but we can read a lot of information just by looking at the input, output. We can also connect the information to its graph. So very first thing, we are going to interpret the function notation through its table. So as you can see, we have a function table here. We don't know if this is a linear function or what, but no matter what kind of function, we can always just use a table to figure out the certain values here. Three values here. The first one is f of -4. Again, remember this is inside value represent x. So when x equals -4, it matching to 12. So that's a value. Let's move on. F of 7, again, the input x is 7, so it's matching to 0, and it's it. And next, it's going to be -7, so we just look for the x. Remember the x value -7 and matching to 8, so that's it. This is the answer. Another question we can kind of ask this question in the opposite way. So they said find the x values if f of x equals 0. So what does that mean? F of x, as we mentioned before, is y equal to 0. So let's find the table here. When y equals 0, it matching to x equal -1. And let's look for that. We see another 0 here, it matching to 7. So that means when x equal -1 or x equal -7, they're both zeros. Also, another thing I want to point out is even we just look at the table, we can also interpret the information to its graph. What does that mean? For example, if you look at this value, when x equals some number and y equals 0, according to the definition, they are both, yes, you probably figure out x-intercept. Because for x-intercept, y is always 0. And another thing we want to point out is, look at this one, 0, -2. When x equals 0, this definition is, yes, you are right, is y-intercept and x equals 0. That's how we define this location. And even we do not know the whole graph, but we do know certain key location for these points. Okay, so that's one thing I want to share with you for using table. Next, we're going to quickly look at the equation and see how do we use the equation to figure out the function values. So we're given a linear function here, and we are going to figure out what is f of 1, what is f of -2. So f of 1, again, when we find out, we know this is x. The inside part is x, meaning the input is 1. So how do I figure out when x equals 1, what is y? All we need to do, plug into the value into the equation. This equation says the function applies to the x's. Whatever the input is, we multiply -3 with +2. So that's it. So we multiply the input is 1 and +2. So the final answer is -1. And next is -3 times -2, because this time the input is -2. And it's -3 times -2 is 6. 6 plus 2 is 8. One more thing I want to remind you, instead of working on the linear function, we can also work on, let's see, -2x squared. Okay, that's a quadratic function. I just want to quickly give you an example. I want to find f of -2. Again, we do exactly the same thing. We plug into the value of x into the equation. But the reason I put this equation because oftentimes when we work on the exponents, very easy to make mistakes here. So since x is negative, I just put parentheses around it. And when we work on the order of operation, we know that exponent work first. So I'm going to do -2 squared, which is -2 times -2, which is 4. So we just need to continue. Then the final answer is -8. Okay, I just want to use this example to show you how do we evaluate the function, but be careful when you work on the exponents. Okay, so in next video, we are going to continue working on this topic, but instead of checking the table or equation, we are going to work on the graph. See you soon, everyone. Thank you so much for watching.